We found the 13 most common questions in pickleball, and we're about to answer every single one of them.
All right, Caleb, number one, what is the importance of the third shot drop and how can I execute it effectively?
Third shot drop is so important. It's probably the one thing you hear when you go out to the pickleball courts for the first time and someone's telling you to learn a shot. That's because it's essential to making your way to the kitchen line and taking on offense. So we're gonna show you exactly how to do that, and it's pretty simple.
My most effective tip for hitting a good third shot drop is to try to make the arch the peak of the arch of your third shot drop on your side of the court. And how I would practice this is I would have my partner stand up at the kitchen.
That's me.
You want it to kind of peak right over their head, kind of like this. And that should be the perfect third shot drop. That's where I typically aim for.
I mean, we've actually made a whole video on this topic like alone, so if you want more information, go check that out. But one of the most useful things someone told me is because I'm coming from tennis, my instinct was to hit basically like a rolling drive, but it's more of a lifting motion. So instead of kind of like coming over the ball and hitting like topspin, it's a little bit more effective to get the ball in front of you and lift upwards and then do that arch that Shay was talking about.
Yeah, so key point right there, make contact in front of your body, not off to your side.
Question number two is, why is control important in pickleball?
So the court that we're playing on is actually quite small. So control is important because it allows you to place balls at different angles and set up your partner for success by putting a lot of pressure on your opponent versus just hitting it hard like you might do if you're coming from a tennis background. One example of this, controlling a ball, is hitting resets. So being able to control a ball and place it in the front half of the kitchen will limit the options of your opponent and make it a lot less likely that you're going to get attacked. That's one reason why it's super important. Okay, question number three is, how do you decide when to use a particular shot, like a drop shot, drive, or lob during play?
Deciding the type of shot is all about deciding what you're trying to do with the point. So if I'm going to play a drop, I'm probably trying to work my way towards the kitchen. A drive can also be just as effective from the baseline when someone hits a short ball that you're able to attack with power.
I would say there's two main factors that contribute to deciding what shot you want to hit. Number one is, what is the safest shot for you to hit at any given moment? So what shot has the most margin of error, like hitting a dink higher versus hitting a speed up at your opponents? And then number two is, what type of shot can you hit that will put the most pressure on your opponents? So if I'm back here and I'm about to hit a third shot, if my opponents are not all the way up to the line, then maybe I would hit a drive and put a lot of pressure on them. But if they're all the way up to the line, they're set and they're ready, I would probably choose to drop to put less pressure on them, but also give myself higher margin of error on that shot. Question number four, what are some effective serve techniques to improve efficiency and power in serving?
One of the biggest problems I see with people's serves is they put too much arm into it. Really, all of your power is going to come through weight transfer. So that includes your whole mass of your body going into the shot, which allows for those kind of like 50-mile-per-hour shots rather than 25. I'll give an example of what a bad serve is. Good ball, I had a good stroke, but I sat there, I didn't move my hips, and I didn't come through the ball. And as a result, that serve was super slow. You'll notice this is gonna look way different. That ball was definitely twice as fast and was a super solid one. What I did there is I came low to high. I followed through with my entire body, and I put all of my weight into the shot when I met the ball at the bottom of my stance. So what you wanna do is follow through the whole way and bring your hips through with power as you're coming through the ball. That's gonna add so much more pace to your serves.
Question number six, can you explain the concept of stacking and doubles and how it affects game strategy?
Huge. Well, let's start with one. Let's just show you what stacking is. So we got to go to the baseline and we'll demonstrate.
Bye.
All right, so let's start from a regular serving position. I'm serving cross court as usual, and we're both in our starting position. So Shay is on the right side, I am on the left side. But if we want to stack, Shay would come over to this side and we would start the point like this. This is completely legal. You can do this at any point during a match. So after the serve, I'm going to serve the ball, and then I'm going to immediately slide this way. And Shay, why do we do that?
Yeah, so there's a couple reasons you might want to do this. The number one most common reason is if the person on the left has a bigger forehand and you want that forehand in the middle of the court. So in this example, if we thought my forehand was better and I'm the more dominant player, then I would want to always be on this left side of the court so that I can take more balls in the middle.
Typically left is going to dominate more of the court, so it's important to have your stronger player or the person who just wants to take more forehands take that side of the court.
Yeah, there's two more reasons why it's super important to know this. Number one, if you have a lefty player and a righty player, then you want both of your forehands in the middle, and this is a way to do that. And then number two, you might have a very specific matchup on the other side of the court. So maybe you pair up better against one opponent than you do the other opponent. So you want to be always in front of that opponent. this is the way you can do that.
Question number 7 is how can I make my serve even more difficult for my opponents to return? This is different than that serve question we had earlier.
One way we know to do this is with speed, but other ways we can do this are by varying location or varying the height of our serve. So in this example, I might want to serve it to Caleb's forehand, and when I see he has a really good forehand, I know that's a bad option and never do that again. So then I could try serving to his backhand, and if his backhand's also good, I still have a third option, which is serving to his body. And so by choosing which of the 3 locations you want to serve to, you can often find weaknesses in your opponents. Other things you can do are hitting balls that are higher. So maybe you serve a ball that stays super high and they have to come up and time a proper stroke, or you can also try to keep the ball lower and hopefully they can't add the proper spin to it. Okay, number 8. What strategies should be employed in doubles play to optimize teamwork and court coverage?
This is basically asking how do you win pickleball points, which is a super loaded question. So let's just cover 3 really great strategies you can implement right now. So let's just go through them, and that's gonna help you out a lot. A personal favorite of mine, because I have a pretty strong forehand, is the shake and bake. And basically what that's gonna be is every time we get a high ball or a sitter or someone hits deep, I'm going to use my strong forehand to send it at a player's body who is at the kitchen line, and they ideally will pop up the ball for my partner to go and finish.
Yeah, second double strategy happens up at the kitchen line. So this is something that I see as problematic all the time, and that's you and your partner not moving together. So in this example, if I were to dink a ball to this side of the court, after I hit this shot, Caleb and I both have to move as a team together because I need to cover my line now and Caleb needs to cover the middle balls. And so make sure that you're moving with your partner wherever you place your dinks. If I were to hit the ball back to this side, then we both move as a team over on this side of the court. His court does not stop at the center line and my court does not begin at the center line. It's very fluid. We can cross over this line and still be happy partners.
Sometimes. Another option is, because shake and bake is not always the best option, is to follow the lead of your partner. So when you're both back at the baseline being pushed back by either an aggressive player or a return, follow the lead of your partner's shot choice. If Shay receives a return cross court, Shay is going to hit a drop to get us towards the kitchen line. But only Shay knows when he makes contact with that ball, whether that drop was good or bad. So it would not make sense for me to go ahead and move forward into the court while Shay is hitting that ball. We want to wait to see Shay make contact and decide that it's a shot worth coming in on, and then I will follow Shay's lead and come in with him. All right, question number 9, Shay, how should players counter bangers?
Okay, funny enough, we have an entire video dedicated to this one as well.
Let's just cover it anyways, come on.
Okay. Number 1 tip for dealing with bangers is being able to control their drives and not letting them play the game that they want to play. So bangers love to stay back at the baseline and just rip balls at you. And so what you have to do to counter that is be able to gently reset balls to the kitchen, reset with different angles, and just make their life a lot more difficult. That's the number 1 way that I would defend it. All right, so a lot of players would just hit the ball back deep and just let him keep banging it at them and eventually pass them like that. Instead, what you want to do is, as you're getting an aggressive ball, hit it with very little pace, just back over the net, reset, and now you're both up at the kitchen line and you've completely taken away all of their offense.
Question number 10. Shay, what are some drills or techniques to improve your hands at the kitchen?
We're going to show you 1 drill and 1 technique.
Let's do it.
So we're going to start by hitting volleys back and forth relatively slow, and then as we get a few in a row, we're going to speed it up and try to get faster. This should be really difficult, but the good thing is, if you practice this, whenever you do step back behind the kitchen line, it should be a lot easier to sustain a rally because you have more time. The number 1 technique change I would make to a lot of people is when you're hitting volleys at your opponent, keep your swing as compact as possible. So the second you make contact with the ball, that's where it should stop. A lot of people tend to do this, where they hit it and they finish over here, and then the ball comes back and hits them in the chest because they didn't have time to recover. Question 11. How does one transition smoothly between defense and offensive play during a match?
I think there's one primary way to transition from defense to offense, and that's working your way to the kitchen line. So when you're serving, you're naturally starting on defense because you were starting at the baseline back here. But as you start to drop and work your way up towards the kitchen line, that's when you can begin to take the offensive. But a big mistake people make is trying to play too offensively once they're serving, and that's really not a position to be starting with the offense. So once you make your way all the way to the kitchen line because you've dropped effectively or have hit a drive that has allowed you to come into the kitchen, that's when you can start to dink and eventually get a ball that allows you to either get a put away or start a hands battle.
And once you're up here at the kitchen line, that does not give you permission to go ahead and be offensive. If you're dinking, a lot of your dinks will be defensive dinks that are higher and shorter. And then when you get a high short ball yourself, you can look to speed that up or place it in a place where it puts pressure on your opponents. And then we can start being a little more offensive.
And one final chance sometimes you have to be offensive even when you're back at the baseline or in the midcourt is when you receive a very high ball from the midcourt. If Shay were to feed me a high ball at the midcourt, I would attack that and start my offensive push and lose the point. All right, Shay, question number 12. Let's do it. How can a player effectively read their opponent's shots to anticipate and position themselves better on the court?
All right, this one's super easy. If your opponent has a big backswing, what are they gonna do?
Speed it up.
Hit the ball hard.
Wow.
If your opponent's paddle tip is low to the net, what are they probably doing?
Hitting the ball up.
Hitting the ball up. So if their opponent's paddle is low to the ground, they're probably either hitting the ball up or hitting like a nice little soft dink over the net. If your opponent's backswing is super, super tiny, more than likely they're dinking the ball. Final question, number 13. What mental strategies or approaches can help players stay focused and confident during competitive play?
Yeah, there's a ton of ways to help stay focused during a match, but one of the most common ways that we recommend to improve your mental during a match is to have a solid routine. Probably the most important thing to have a routine for is your serve. The last thing you want to do ever in pickleball is miss a serve. So make sure you set up from the exact same position every single time. My serving routine probably looks like this. I take the ball, I bounce it a couple times with my paddle, I walk up and I touch the ball to my paddle right before I serve. I get into a ready stance and then I serve the ball. But for you, that might look a little bit different. But I'm gonna recommend doing the exact same thing every single time, and it's gonna improve your mentality starting a point each time.
If you've been playing pickleball for a while, you've probably been inside of a long dink rally that's quite intense. And if you want to maintain focus during that rally, it's super important. Try to look at the holes of the pickleball. By looking at something so small, like the holes of the pickleball, it keeps you way more focused, and you're not necessarily worrying about what's going on behind your opponent and maybe all the distractions that could be happening. And those are the 13 most common pickleball questions that we've received.
And if you want to be part of videos like this, I recommend subscribing to our newsletter where we show up in your inbox on a regular basis. We're going to give you the opportunity to submit questions of your own that we can answer in future videos. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Yeah, YouTube.